catching up on movie reviews on this episode of the Movies Past and Present podcast. Hello and welcome to the Movies Past and Present podcast. It's January 4th, 2024, and this is episode 118. I'm your host, Stanford Clark, and I'm podcasting from the crossroads of the West in beautiful Salt Lake City, Utah. Just on my website, moviespastandpresent.com, I'll be providing recommendations, commentary, and reviews about current and classic cinema. Thanks for tuning in, and let's do this thing. Happy New Year, everyone, and thanks so much for your continued support. New in theaters this week, opening on Friday, January 5th, is the horror movie Night Swim. This is from Universal Pictures. It's written and directed by Bryce McGuire, and it's based on his acclaimed 2014 short film. And who knew that there was such a thing? This full-length feature stars Wyatt Russell as Ray Waller, a former Major League Baseball player forced into early retirement by a degenerative illness. He moves into a new home with his concerned wife, who's played by Carrie Condon, their teenage daughter Izzy, who's played by Emily Hoffery. I hope I'm saying your name right, Emily. And young son Elliot, who's played by Gavin Warren. Secretly hoping against the odds to return to pro ball, Ray persuades his wife Eve that the new home's shimmering backyard swimming pool will be fun for the kids and provide physical therapy for him. But a dark secret in the home's past will unleash a malevolent force that will drag the family into the depths of inescapable terror. Nothing like starting off the new year with a horror movie. So, Night Swim. It's rated PG-13 by the Motion Picture Association for terror and some violent content and language. So anyway, only one new movie this week, and thankfully there's lots of holiday leftovers that you can see, and I will be talking about those next. So I'm catching up on some reviews. Please forgive the delay. Starting way back in Thanksgiving of 2023, where a couple of films opened up that I'd like to give reviews of, and then just some other films that have opened up over the last few weeks that I've had a chance to see. So first up is Wish. Wish is the latest feature from Walt Disney Animation Studios. And one interesting thing about Wish is that it's the film that Disney was using, at least Disney Animation was using, to commemorate the 100th anniversary of the studio. Walt Disney and his brother Roy Disney formed their first cartoon studio in Los Angeles in 1923. And it was known as the Disney Brothers Cartoon Studios. It changed to the Walt Disney Studios, and of course now we know it as the Walt Disney Company. But the company, the Walt Disney Company, was celebrating 100 years, and of course I had a lot of fun with that in 2023. And this film was really made as an homage to 100 years of Disney. So it's an original fairy tale directed by Chris Buck and Fawn Veerasuthorn, and I hope I'm saying your name right, Fawn. And it tells the story of a young girl named Asha who wishes on a star and gets a more direct answer than she bargained for when a little mischievous star comes down from the sky to join her. the voice of Asha is the wonderful actress Ariana DeBose. Chris Pine plays the villain in the movie named King Magnifico. Alan Tudyk is also back, who's been kind of a secret weapon for Walt Disney Animation Studios over the last few years. The Disney Animation team, I think, really tried with this one, and sadly, I just didn't like it very much. They were trying to make this story, about wishing on a star. That's such a key element in so many Disney films, and they thought it would be interesting to go like back to what's the origin, of this wishing star. So actually, this story is set in a time period. And not that there's a continuum, and Disney films are, set in fantasy settings and, kind of all over the place. But this is in a way like Disney trying to create like their very first fairy tale. So I thought that was an interesting idea. And the animation itself is just gorgeous. I think it's very reminiscent of their classic features. For example, Sleeping Beauty comes to mind, which is a film I admire very much, particularly for its animation art. Wish looked great. The animators employed this, of course, using computers, but it has this very hybrid style and a lovely color palette, and it looked great. I just didn't think that the story or the songs matched up to what they were trying to do. Also, given that it's Disney's homage to its 100th anniversary in a real serious way. They put in a lot of Easter eggs and little things that, they thought would overall be fun for Disney fans. And I caught a few. I'm sure that there were many I didn't catch. Either they're so subtle or so random or just so hidden, but the ones I did catch, some of them made me smile. Other ones, I just thought they were trying too hard. In fact, it just seems like there was so much focus on creating these kind of these Easter eggs or little mini homages to the films of the past that I just felt it was actually distracting from the story. One interesting thing about this, which at one point I thought was kind of cool, and then at another point I thought, no, not really. Asha, this main, our heroine here, who's a teenager. She's got 7 teenage friends, and they all have names which begin with the same letter as the 7 dwarfs. So the main kind of the ringleader of the 7 teens, her name is Dahlia, of course, which is synonymous with Doc. Dahlia's clothing in the movie follows the same kind of color palette that Doc the dwarf did, and it just goes on and on. There's a young woman named Hal who's like the version of Happy. Simon is the version of Sleepy. Anyway, it goes on and on. They mostly, though, I just felt it was ultimately kind of distracting, and they didn't really help the story, and it was just like a way to force some diversity into the film, which just didn't feel like it was. None of it just felt like it was natural, and that it just worked. Everything just felt so forced in it to me. And as I mentioned, I just didn't care for the music. If I'm not mistaken, the songwriter's name is Julia Michaels. I had not heard of her before, and I just didn't care for the music. Ariana DeBose is a dream. I think she is so talented, has a lovely speaking voice. I thought her performance was excellent, and her singing was fantastic. Sadly, the whole time I was listening to this music, I kept thinking either it was very derivative of previous Disney, musicals, and again, I guess that's kind of the whole point of this movie in a way. But I kept thinking, wouldn't it have been great if, again, they had worked with like Lin-Manuel Miranda or Bobby Lopez and Kristen Anderson Lopez. It has some really just, absolutely fantastic songs. I mean, or heaven forbid, Alan Menken, So, sadly, Wish was a miss for me. I hope people have been enjoying it. I don't think that it hasn't been much of a huge hit, although it's still playing in theaters. At least I noticed that when I was at the movies over the weekend. So one thing that I thought was interesting too is I believe one of the reasons why it hasn't gotten great reviews. Not that that necessarily holds people back from going to the movies, but I also think just some people, we've just been conditioned to know that Disney's going to put their films out on the Disney Plus streaming service. This film opened up over Thanksgiving weekend, and here we are, first week of January, and it's still in theaters, and they haven't announced yet. They, meaning Disney, hasn't announced yet when it's going on Disney Plus. So I guess it'll get there eventually, but I guess kudos to them for not just immediately having a knee-jerk reaction and putting it out on the service. And again, it's so lovely to look at. I did really enjoy seeing it on the big screen. I just didn't enjoy the movie. Next up is another film that opened up in November. It's called Next Goal Wins, and this is a sports movie. It's directed by Taika Waititi, and it's based on this true story. And, I'm not much of a soccer person, so I wasn't aware of this. But in 2001, the team from American Samoa that was competing in a FIFA match, that's the big soccer International Soccer Association, they lost their match 31-0. I believe that they were playing Australia. So one of the worst, if not the worst, losses ever. And this is just a really horrible team. But the Soccer Association really wanted to give them another shot, and they sent a very troubled coach over to American Samoa to help get this team in place, and also in a way to kind of help rehabilitate this coach. So the coach is played by Michael Fassbender, and then they've got a very appealing cast of Polynesians, native Polynesians that are playing, members of the team and members of the community there in American Samoa. And Taika Waititi also is in it too. He plays a role. This was a film that I was really excited about and I really wanted to like, but it ultimately wasn't very good, in my opinion. For me, and again, I think this is part of the story, but the lead coach that Michael Fassbender plays, he's so unlikable in a way, and he's dealing with some real personal tragedy stuff, which I'll keep it spoiler free. But he's incredibly unlikable, and that just really And I don't know if that was Michael Fassbender or if it was just the way this role was written too. So that made it just, not that great to watch. And then uh, there's a component of this story which is true, based on a true story, but there's a trans player on the team, and a big chunk of this film is spent kind of the Michael Fassbender character and this trans character working out their professional relationship together. The team's very accepting of this player, but Michael Fassbender, the coach isn't necessarily on board, and then there's just a lot of drama going on with that, which I didn't necessarily think was as interesting, again, overall, to this team story about how this team is going to figure out really their goal is just to like make a goal rather than have that devastating loss where they didn't even score a goal and the other team scored 31. So again, I was hoping for something just getting super witty and kind of kooky, given that Taika Waititi was the director. He's the director of Jojo Rabbit. He's directed a couple of Thor movies, and particularly Thor Ragnarok, which I thought was just nuts and really fun. But this film I thought was sadly for me it was a real miss. I didn't care for it. Next up is the film The Holdovers, and actually also I should say Mexico Wins I think still is playing in theaters. I think there's still limited screenings every day, so if you want to see it in the theater, there it is. Next up is The Holdovers, which is a comedy drama. It's from Focus Features, and it's directed by Alexander Payne. It stars Paul Giamatti. It's set in the year 1970 at a kind of an elite boarding school on the East Coast. Paul Giamatti plays a history professor who is he's single and a bit of a loner. He lives on, I think if not all of these teachers live on campus during the school year. But there were 4 students that this Christmas season, Christmas of 1970. Again, this is a fictional story, but that they they weren't going home for Christmas. They had their families were gone, or stuff was going on, and they were going to need to stay at the school over the holiday. So Paul Giamatti is the faculty member that gets assigned to stay with these 4 students. Also sticking around is the lunch lady, so woman who works the cafeteria, saying that she's had some tragedy in her life, and she didn't want to, she just wanted to stay, and work. And so basically it's about stuff happens, and again, I don't want to give it away, but some of these other students, they get an opportunity to leave and go skiing for the holiday. But this one student stays, and his name is Angus. He's played by Dominic Sessa. And I think this is Dominic's first major role, and he's very good. He's very good in it. But basically, he's the only student. They can't get a hold of his parents, so he can't go on. He doesn't have permission to go on the skiing trip, and so he has to stay. So it's basically Paul Giamatti's character, Angus, and then I'm calling her the lunch lady, but she's the woman who works at the cafeteria, the school cafeteria. So it's these three people, and they spend Christmas together and have kind of these interesting adventures that both at the school and then some field trips were involved. And again, I'll keep it spoiler free, but it's actually, this is a very good character study. These three people all are dealing with stuff, and I thought it was a real slice of life in a way type of film. I liked the setting. I liked the time period. But really, most of all, it's just these great performances. But I gotta hold it to the script too. What a nice job they did, because some of these characters are dealing with some heavy stuff. Well, and I guess kudos to Alexander Payne too for directing this in such a way that was sensitive, but doesn't necessarily hit you over the head with stuff. And in a way, it's just like peeling of the onion, where as the film goes on and you learn more and more about the truth, what's going on with each of these three people. And I thought it was just an excellent film. And I would definitely recommend it. So Holdover is a really great comedy drama. I ended up watching it. I think it might be in theaters, but maybe even just like down to like one show a day. It's on the Peacock streaming service. That's where I ended up watching it. Was on Peacock. So anyway, for what it's worth, but the Holdovers was very good. Okay, next up is Wonka. So Wonka, as is actually a prequel to the first, we know it as Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. It's Roald Dahl's book, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. This is not based on a Roald Dahl book. It's based on just some of these characters from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, but set where we've got a very young Willy Wonka, who is dreaming of opening up a chocolate shop. So Willy Wonka is played by Timothée Chalamet, and then it's got some other interesting characters in it, notably Olivia Colman, who plays the villain in the movie, Mrs. Scrubbit, who does seem like she's right out of a kind of a combination of a Roald Dahl book or even a Charles Dickens book. This movie was directed by Paul King. Paul King is he directed those Paddington movies that came out. Paddington came out 10 years ago. 2014. Paddington 2 was in 2017. And those films had, I thought, a very kind of charm, had a charm and a unique style about them. And this film very much falls into that same realm. I think the thing I liked the most about Wonka is just it was family friendly. It was so nice just to have like a family friendly movie. It kept a pretty consistent tone. It didn't get too maudlin or too weird. Hugh Grant plays the Oompa Loompa in the movie. The Oompa Loompas that we all know from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. I guess two or three kind of gripes about it. The music, I didn't think the music was good. The only time the music really shines is, and it's a musical. It's a musical, so they're singing and dancing in it. But there's kind of an ongoing refrain of that wonderful Imagination song that's from the original Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory with Gene Gene Wilder. And so that was like the best, the best part of the music of Wonka was this, using music from the original movie. Also, you play the Oompa Loompa theme too, so that's kind of fun. But otherwise, the music's not that great. The thing about this too is that it's just completely unnecessary. Again, just this crafted backstory that really does nothing for anything other than it's just a fun time in the movies, and I'm just so happy that it's family friendly, and I think families are going and enjoying it. I think it's been doing quite well, and I said it's not terrible by any means. But it's one of those things that to me, just felt completely unnecessary. But at least it's, quality made, family friendly, and there you have that. Next up is Godzilla -1. And this is, the latest in the history of Godzilla movies. This one was actually made in Japan. Some of these more recent Godzilla movies, including Godzilla, like Godzilla versus Kong, those have been made in America. This one is really, in a way, just a classic Godzilla. It's like a classic Godzilla movie. But it's not a dude in a plastic suit, as we've got a CGI monster and really excellent special effects. But I think the two things that I loved most about this film was that there's a really great ensemble cast that you're really rooting for. In a way, it felt like the original Jaws film, where you've got Richard Dreyfuss and Peter Schneider. They're there. You're rooting for this team to take out this monster, and then just incredibly solid. As I mentioned, special effects. The Godzilla monster is fantastic. I just think we just huge shout out to the director Takahashi Yamazaki, and again, I'm hoping I'm saying that correctly, but he has just delivered a really outstanding action monster movie that I just felt hit all the right notes with, action and drama and suspense, and again, it doesn't get too maudlin. There's some happy stuff that happens in it. I also like the setting. This was set in post World War II Japan, and so that was interesting too, in a way, like the original one. But it's absolutely terrific, and really one of my favorite movies of the year. Godzilla -1. So that's one. See it on the biggest screen possible. I sadly wish I had seen it when it had its week or 2 week run in IMAX. I missed that, but I was so happy to be able to see it in theaters. So, and it's still there. And when I saw it, I believe it was last week ago Tuesday, but the theater was full, so that was fun. Just a lot of people going and a lot of people enjoying it. So definitely recommend Godzilla -1. Okay, next up is Ferrari. And this is a film that I also had really been looking forward to. This is a biopic about Enzo Ferrari, the founder of the Italian race car powerhouse Ferrari. This film takes place in 1957. It's directed by Michael Mann. And Michael Mann, who's I think one of the finest directors still living and working today, he has crafted just a very interesting film. I don't think this film is going to be for everybody. I love cars and I love car racing. So that part of it just was, I just admired so much, just the technical excellence of how this film was crafted. The performances are also, I think, very good. Adam Driver plays Enzo Ferrari, and his Enzo was married and to a woman named Laura Ferrari. In the movie, she's played by Penelope Cruz. Enzo also, though, is having an affair, and with a woman named Lena Lardy, and who's played in the film by Shailene Woodley. The thing that's interesting about this, I mean, I learned a lot about Enzo Ferrari, and I think he was a complicated man. I can't say I really admire a lot of his choices, but the guy knew how to make a car and he knew how to win. His car business, though, was like Laura Ferrari, his wife, was his business partner too. So that was, I think a real challenge for them, and they had some hardship too, which you'll learn about in the movie if you don't already know about it. Which I think also kind of led Enzo to have this affair. But so the drama scenes are very well acted, and they're of course very integral to the story. But they're all just filmed in dark rooms, and I think actually it was a good artistic choice in a way that it focuses you on the dialogue and these excellent acting performances, but where the movie really shines is when they are out on the racetrack, and I don't know how much of it was done digitally or what, but it's magnificent. The racing scenes are everything is fantastic. The editing and the sound design and where did they get these cars? That's one of the things I loved it again. Maybe they're digital, but it all looked so cool. So for me, Ferrari was actually really quite a treat, but I could see how it just might not be everyone's cup of tea, given the heavy subject matter intertwined with a lot of automobile stuff, which again just might not be of interest. That's still playing in theaters. I don't think it's gonna be around for long, but if you do want to see it, I would recommend seeing it on the big screen. Okay, finally, in our giant list of movies I'm trying to catch up on is The Boys in the Boat. So this movie, directed by George Clooney, is based on a true story, and it's a remarkable story of this group of young men from the University of Washington who end up being the U.S. Olympic team, and they go to the 1936 Berlin Olympics and race there. They row, right? They're in these 8-person rowboats, and this film, again, as I said, is based on this true story. But I didn't know this story until I had read the book, and it's The Boys in the Boat: 9 Americans and Their Epic Quest for Gold at the 1936 Berlin Olympics. That was written by Daniel James Brown and published in 2013. That's when I had heard about it. It seemed like every friend I had that was in a book club whoever was reading this book, then. And I read it too and thought it was terrific, and what a great way to, inform our generation about this remarkable story. George Clooney has crafted just a really terrific movie. It's of course, a sports movie about this rowing team. And there are so many things that I think that just could have gone wrong, but that didn't in this film. We get to know some of these rowers, but not all of them. But I mean, we're aware of the team. But he smartly highlights one particular player in this film named Joe Rance. He's played by the actor Colin Turner. And so he's kind of like the main character but even though we've got all these other guys on the team. Joel Edgerton plays the coach. It's Coach Al Ubrickson, and he's terrific. Joel Edgerton gives an outstanding performance as this coach, who the thing that I was reminded of in the movie is that this rowing team, they were actually the JV team at the University of Washington. They weren't even the varsity team. But they were all so talented and so hungry that they were able just to do this amazing stuff. There's also sometimes with sports movies, for me, there can either be like too many obstacles, which I know that's part of it, and they've got to have the conflict. Sometimes just like, oh, please, no more obstacles. Just let these people, get to the competition. This had plenty of obstacles, but they all worked. And again, I think that they were factual, too, of stuff that was actually, of course, going on, since this is based on a true story. But just expert storytelling by these writers. I believe that the writer of the book, Daniel James Brown, was involved, and then Mark L. Smith was another, I think the credited screenwriter on it, but outstanding script and just fantastic direction by George Clooney. I thought this film, to me, and I mean this as a compliment, it felt very old fashioned to me, and like almost like it was made in that time period. It uses a beautiful, like a kind of a sepia tone, and it's just a pleasure to look at. The cinematography is excellent, and it just fills you with happiness. It's just, in a way, just unabashedly optimistic, and it's just kind of felt like this is the movie that we need today, with so much sadness and heartache and confusion and contention going on, across the country. A film like this, I just felt is uniting and wonderful. Again, the screening I went to, it was practically full, and that made me so happy, just knowing that I think people were seeing this movie. People clapped at the end of it. I think they really enjoyed it. Another MVP in this film is Alexander Desplat, and again, I'm sorry if I'm saying his name incorrectly, but he is just, the soundtrack is perfection, and this is a really fantastic film. Well, that does it for this episode of the Movies Past and Present podcast. Links and more information about the movies discussed in today's podcast can be found in the podcast notes on my blog at moviespastandpresent.com. Subscribe to the podcast where you listen to podcasts, and follow me on Instagram. I'm at moviespap. As always, I hope you'll enjoy some good movies this week, whether they be from the past or the present. Thanks again for listening, and until next time, dedicate yourself to the truth, and Happy New Year!